tundra.
We are in the wildest part of America, and it's not easy to get to this place. You fly in a pretty small propeller plane, and then you get in a really small plane to land on these gravel bars, you know, and people are like, we're gonna land there? I'm excited to see people that want to come up here and want to experience this place. You're really like an expedition. You're out there just experiencing this country for the first time.
It's just the very beginning of autumn. I was walking around last night and some of the leaves are turning and the caribou are just starting to move through. I'm excited that everybody's on the ground and we're all here.
I'm Rod Hutter. I'm from Truckee, California.
I'm Lindsay Heiduk.
I'm Ed Norton.
My name is Ann McBride Norton.
I'm Jack Stevenson.
I'm Mike Stevenson, Jack's younger brother.
The adventure seekers among us do come up to the reserve to get out on the land and experience a completely wild place. The National Petroleum Reserve is what we call this place, but it is a jewel in the rough. It's 23 million acres, and that's all public lands, and 11 million acres are special areas, and those are areas special for wildlife and conservation.
Pretty fresh caribou tracks here. It's a snowshoe. Now, these animals are well adapted to that deep snow.
Approximately more than half of the reserve is open to oil and gas leasing. And there are companies right now working to get permits to do some exploration and development. There currently is no active development in the reserve, but the time is near.
Because summers are cold, you know, much of the vegetative mat gets covered up and it doesn't decompose. There's a huge amount of carbon buildup here. You know, one of the things about the Western Arctic is that it doesn't fit very well on a postcard. It's not Yosemite. The beauty here is subtle and it's quiet. It's a place that's hard for some people to relate to. It's important nonetheless. No actual plants were harmed in the filming of this movie. Actually, while we have a hole here, anybody? Never.
We're at the Etivluk River. We are watching it flow north. It eventually meets the Colville River. This is our home for the next week.
They're not going to do leasing, oil and gas leasing in these areas.
Currently,
right?
no.
Okay. We've got temporary protection for just about 11 million acres, and from the conservation perspective, we would like to have a little more permanent protection.
I think this country is just so big that there's always something new to see, a new river to float.
What we're seeing are these big overhanging pieces because the permafrost is melted underneath it, which is kind of what holds it all up. So as it melts, the river can work at it and erode it away.
The wildlife is always moving around, so you never know what you're going to see. So it's always exciting.
The values that are here, the wildlife, the scale of the natural forces at work are infinitely more important than the barrels of oil that are here. I think that with the modern technology of the oil industry, this the National Petroleum Reserve is not all that inaccessible. I mean, look at the development in Prudhoe Bay, look at the offshore development that has occurred. And so in the future, there will be pressure, there will be very strong momentum to develop these resources. And we're seeing that already.
Reel it in as much as you can.
Oh, nice grayling. If we're smart and careful and take the long-term view of the availability of these resources to the American people, we actually can have it both ways. We can have our cake and eat it too.
Happy birthday, dear Ed.
Look at that!
Happy birthday to you.
Blueberry chocolate cake.
Wow,
Of course.
We have to acknowledge that this is an area set aside for development, but not every corner is open to it. We just want to be sure that as we know it will happen, that we are protecting the wildlife and the landscapes.
There's the bear running up the hill.
So it's critical that we get it right now. Alaska is an interesting case because it's always had a national constituency of people working to protect it.
But if there are local people who know the place, care about the place, that's more important in keeping the character of a place like this than having wilderness designation.
Part of what's complicated in the NPRA is that the local people here, the sort of community leaders, are more concerned about economic survival, and rightly so.
There's more than enough land to do all of these things if you do it the right way. It just requires a plan that everybody can buy into.
If you could do more planning than was done during the Industrial Revolution to make sure that you protect the game corridors, that you make sure that you don't do billions of dollars of environmental cleanup afterwards.
We can talk about the abstract environmental goals, which are terribly important, but there's nothing like coming to a place like this to really understand its importance.
1, 2, 3, haul away! This is the NPRA.
The National Petroleum Reserve-Alaska, or is what I like to call it, the Western Arctic.
It gives you this idea that the oil's just like bubbling out of the ground.
You don't see petroleum, you see a lot of wild.
We're at the confluence of the Colville and the Etivluk.
We're in the MPRA.
One of the most pristine wilderness areas I've ever seen.
It's certainly not my image of what we think about a high development area.
It is the National Petroleum Reserve, but to me at least it represents the last really great land conservation opportunity in the United States.